Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again. And I hope you're enjoying our course on how to develop and maintain a risk management system. So this is module 6, and this module will be doing an overview of the 5-step risk assessment process. We are going to cover a few basics such as planning, understanding, assessment preparation, assess the risks, reporting and risk treatment, and we're also going to look at what should organizations implement. And then we'll finish this module with references and further readings to help enhance your learning and understanding of the 5-step risk assessment process. So let's have a look at the overview of the 5-step risk assessment process. First of all, we have to look at the planning aspect. We have to agree on objectives, scope, and parameters. We have to select our assessment team and develop an assessment project plan. Once we've done that, we have to get an understanding of the risk assessment process. We need to gather information. We may need to do interviews, we may need to observe what's going on, and we may have to look at the internal operations. We also have to review this information and identify gaps and any additional information requirements. Once we've done that, we can look at the assessment preparation. This is about developing structure, categorization, methodology, and of course, our assessment grading system. Once we have done that, we then assess the risks, look at the template, populate it, review draft and identify gaps, and also follow up any information. After we've done that, our final step is reporting and risk treatment. Let's have a closer look at step 1, planning. With planning, we have 6 key elements of a risk management plan. The first one is the statement of purpose and objectives. What are you trying to achieve with your risk management plan? This is very important. The second thing we need to think about is the authority. Who's in charge and who's responsible for the implementation of your risk management plan? You also need to think about your goals and objectives. What is the aim of this risk management plan? What are you hoping to achieve? What are the goals of this plan? Then, of course, we need to look at the scope and function. You then need to have an administrative and committee structure of who is going to help you with this risk management plan. And then you have to monitor it and, of course, continual improvement. So what I want you to do now is have a think about what you would do for your risk management plan for your organization. Let's have a closer look at step 2, understanding, and how it allows us to develop an understanding of the organization, its operations, the operating environment, and of course, any challenges we may face. First, we look at the areas for investigation. So we need to look about what normal looks like for this organization. And by finding out what normal looks like, we can then discover what risks could be involved. We need to look at the risk attitudes of the staff, the tolerance and appetite for risk. Another very important thing we need to look at is the operating environment and any likely threats that could pop up. And then we need to look at any changes to normal and what these potential effects could have on the organization. You also need to review documents. Look at the policies and procedures of the organization. Do some of your own research, such as websites. Also look at any training that any staff have had. And of course, the incident reports are a great way to find out any problems that are in the organization. Also review the policies and procedures. Maybe you can look at how the policies and procedures are, and if any of the incident reports relate to any gaps in the policies and procedures. Lastly, you need to do some interviews and you need to do some observations. So maybe when you're doing this, witness any audits and risk assessments that have been done before. Have a look at what existing measures exist for risk assessments. When interviewing people, have a look at what their concerns may be and any previous events that people might mention. You should also examine the role of personnel, the functions of personnel, and what the objectives are. Let's take some time now to look at step 3, which is the assessment and preparation. This is a part where you develop the structure and methodology for the assessment itself. First of all, you need to look at the assessment structure. You need to have a think about the categories. For example, the threat type. What is the threat within that assessment? You need to also look at the organizational function. Another factor you need to consider is the likelihood and the consequence of the risk. You have to also come up with a grading system. In most cases, we usually just use high, medium, and low. Also, take into account the categories and put them together to see if they are similar risks. Categorize these by the threat type, the market, the environment, health and safety, and any other aspects. And then you also have to think about the organizational function. You have to think about operations, HR, and of course, finance. Step 4, assess the risks. In this step, you need to consolidate the information you have gathered in the assessment framework that you previously developed. This step is about assessing the risks within the organization that you are doing the risk assessment for. I cannot stress enough that it is very important that you do not rush to get to this stage. If you were to rush, you might misunderstand the intent of the risk report. You could also misunderstand the context of the report. You also might miss key information, and you need to take the emotion out of it. It's very important that your risk report is data-led, not emotion-led. Step 5, and our final step. This step looks at reporting and implementation. The final stage is to prepare and review the risk report with key stakeholders. And then you need to finalize the options for addressing risks. You have to remember that risk assessment tools are decision-making tools. So of course you need to find a way to share the results. The first thing you should do is start with a review of the draft report. So the first thing you do, and the first draft you do, it should be shared with the client or your project sponsor. The reason behind this is to ensure the report is clear and that your assessment and comments make sense. Then another way of doing this is workshops can help review the results. But when it comes to workshops, you really need careful management because, as the saying goes, too many cooks could spoil the broth. And then you need to develop recommendations on what the implementation approach is for managing the risk. This could include, but of course it's not limited to, such things as the developing an approach to treating the risk, designing risk control measures, and decision making around risk management. The key thing is you need to ensure that the risk assessment is embedded into the organization's decision-making processes. This will help you to determine the next steps in terms of the ongoing management of risk. So, as you review the 5 steps, I want you to have a think about how you would apply them to your organization and to a risk management system if you were to compile and complete your own. Thanks for listening to this module. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us at eRisk360. We hope you can join us in the preceding modules.